Hi everyone, welcome to this premiere streaming of Chris Liebing documentary. I'm Marc Marzenit, I'm the CEO of Aulart, and we are really happy to be here, and we have of course Chris Liebing, the protagonist of the documentary. How are you doing, Chris?
Hello, Mark. Hello, everyone at Aulart. I have to say that first of all, like such an amazing company. Such a big pleasure to work with you guys. It's been a pleasure. And hello, everyone watching. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I'm doing great. Where I am actually, it's not early in the morning, but it's almost midday because I'm on the west coast of the USA at the moment.
He's touring, of course. Fortunately, everything is back to normality, and he's
Sort of.
touring in LA. And so if there's some connection issues, like it's for the fact that he's on a on a hotel. So
Yeah, it's actually it's an apartment of a friend of mine where I'm at, and it's located beautifully in the Hollywood Hills. So any delay we're experiences, blame it on the Hollywood Hills, okay? But I hope we're going to work out and everything is going to be fine.
for sure. First of all, I want to actually mention like Chris Liebing is releasing really soon an album on Mute. We will speak about this later because it has connection with the documentary. But for those who didn't participate on the giveaway, we are giving 5 copies of the vinyl. You have the link on the landing page, or community manager is going to share with you guys. So it's the last chance. You have 30 minutes left to subscribe and have the possibility to win this copy of the vinyl, and check your email tomorrow because we're gonna send the winners tomorrow by email. So thank you for all of you who participate on the event. Now we're gonna start explaining how did
Hold
happen this
on.
documentary.
In order to motivate everybody else a little bit more, even. Oh,
You have a copy.
I have a
Oh
copy.
wow.
Look at this. I got this in the mail just about 2 weeks before I left on my trip, or a week before I left on my trip to the States here. And this is the album. This is the finished album, which is going to come out on November 19th.
It's
Very
beautiful.
happy. Very looking forward.
It's actually
Thank
beautiful.
you.
We're not gonna do, and I say it's beautiful because okay, we're not gonna do any spoiler of the documentary. The documentary, it was something very natural, casual that happened when we were actually shooting Chris Liebing masterclass. For those if you don't know what is Aulart, Aulart is an educational platform, and basically we want to educate about the roots of the electronic music, about the mixing, producing, educating, everything related with the music. So it happened that we were shooting an incredible masterclass that Chris released this year about mixing techniques, his background, his story, and somehow he had access to old boxes that he didn't open in years. Some of the boxes were closed for ton of years, like 20 years. There was some like a lot of like for me was like historical content, and he was explaining stories of I have these boxes on the basement I didn't open for years, and said, "Oh, can you show me this, Chris?" I said, "Yes, it's here." And then he explained, started explaining about this. That I say, "Chris, do you mind if we can film this because it's magic when it's happening. I mean, this should be recorded and it should be shared with the electronic music community." I said, "Oh, yes, of course." So that's the reason that how came up the documentary. It's not something we planned. It's something that happened. So I have my camera team with me, and I said, "Guys, let's do an improvised documentary," and the result is good. And thank you, Chris, because I mean you had been so
Well,
much patient with us.
no, 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 no. That was an awesome experience to work with you guys. And this, I mean, everything is connected, and the best things happen organically. And we shot the masterclass last December, beginning of last December. And when you came to Frankfurt, um, I actually just got the masters in for the album. That's why we were listening to you were you were even the first ones to listen to an almost finished order of the album, which then we changed, thanks to your input as well. And yeah, and then we were shooting the masterclass in the studio where I have done the Alone Together streams. For those of you who might have watched some of my pandemic streams, I have this construction site below my apartment, and I set up a DJ booth here. So we use this as the studio for the masterclass, and that's just above the basement. And then we were just chatting about like, yeah, I have all that stuff in the basement. And that was an awesome idea of you to say immediately, like, let's get the cameras out. We need to put this on tape. It was I was an amazing opportunity that just probably only comes up once. And I'm so grateful that you were there with the cameras, actually.
It was really improvised. And I think that's why it's so real, the documentary, because it's nothing planned. We made the script few hours before shooting. And yeah, it was really like in a rush. And it was actually really emotive, like a special moment, because in Germany, you guys were struggling in the worst pandemic moment, and I don't know, like being together, in your studio, everything kind of on lockdown, all this situation was kind of, like a little bit dark, and sharing this, I remember when we were watching videos of you playing in Love Parade or that stuff, or opening boxes, like, I don't know, I felt so emotionally. I felt like really, really, really inspiring.
Yeah, I've had some realizations, especially about this one video that we're going to show in there, where I realized, oh, wait a minute, that is a track that I've done. Well, you will see it in the documentary when it's going to be streamed in a little bit. We don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah, actually, that spoiler is on the trailer.
Oh, that spoilers on the trailer already?
A little bit, that's a tiny bit, but people doesn't know.
Just a tiny bit.
Just a tiny bit. Yeah, people react really amazingly good on the trailer. It's so exciting. So many people ask me like, okay, when I can see these, when it's gonna be available. And I need to mention that the masterclass is gonna be available. The documentary is gonna be available in 4K quality. After this live event, the Aulart team is gonna upload the video on 4K quality, and actually it's going to have like French subtitles, Russian subtitles, Chinese subtitles, Spanish subtitles, and English transcript. So we wanna kind of to bring access to cultures that probably often they don't have access to translated content. So please, guys, if you have friends in France, Russia, China, Spain, please share the documentary, because for those who doesn't understand the language, English language, is gonna be easy to understand.
Yeah, and we went to quite some special places. All very spontaneous, and we have to say, in the middle of a pandemic, we did all this, Yeah. And we're showing very special places in Frankfurt. And I've really realized also, wow, we've been doing this for quite a long time already. It doesn't feel like it. No. It made me feel a little old at some point. But also very experienced.
Very experienced. Please, if you have questions about now we're gonna premiere the documentary. But guys, if you have questions, please send your questions on the chat about anything related with the documentary. Probably most of you I feel like you're gonna guys have some strong emotions as all the Aulart team did when we watch. So yes. Are you ready, Chris? Can we?
I'm totally ready. I'm super excited to share this with the world now.
Okay, so officially, let's start the premiere. Chris Liebing documentary, Unboxing Memories.
right, let's have a look in the basement, where we find all these old boxes with stuff from the past. Let's see what we got. Whoa. Wow, Jux Records. Released on the 26th of October 2006. Live at Whoomp in Tokyo. Interesting. So basically, in order to share all these experiences and memories I have to go through my own memories. So I have to go through old boxes and everything. Elevator catalog in 2015. They put me on the cover. Loads and loads of photos. Black Asteroid, Tommy 47, DJ Emerson. My biggest fans, Arthur and Aggie. Since 20 years we've been partying together. Whoa. That is actually a picture from the old Tresor. That is actually the old Tresor. This is downstairs. This was the bank where people put their money in. This is so cool. There's one other story that I can tell you from Tresor. I sometimes say that was the night where I understood techno. Sundays at Tresor was always the sort of the final day and night, and it was incredible there. Since it was so humid downstairs, it was so full, it was so humid that Oliver Boncio was afraid of his record sleeves getting wet. And I remember I was upstairs in the office, and he came in the office and said, like, no way I'm playing down there. It's just way too wet. It's way too foggy. It's way too hot. It was so hot and so foggy down there, and so little oxygen in a way that you could not even light a cigarette. When we were smoking a joint, one of us always had to run upstairs, lighten the joint, and come back down because it was literally that crazy. The people in the office like, well, Chris, do you have your records with you? And I'm like, of course I have my records right in the hotel. And it's just like I ran back, got my records. And I remember I played till 11 in the morning on the Monday together with Klaus, Good Groove. And then the night closed and I walked upstairs and I opened the door and I saw the sun. And I seriously remember that was the moment where I said to myself, I fully understood techno right now. What is this? Wow. More pictures. Christmas party, December 1996. My old spin club in Gießen. That's the flyer from there. Mayday. Omen flyer. Distillery Leipzig. Probably the club in Germany which is still running. And the first time I played there was in December 1996, and I actually still play there. This is still going. Wow, so cool. These were great presents from friends, from fans. So amazing. Phil Kieran, Speedy J, Adam Bayer. This is all like at least 15 years ago. Ben Sims, Speedy J playing live. Wow, party people. Old Groove magazine with the Frankfurt crew back in the days. This is from December, January 2000, 2001. So exactly 20 years ago. Monika Kruse still looks the same today. Frank Lorber. Honestly, I have no clue who this is. I don't remember this. Oh, what? It's Ellen Alien. My God. That's me, looking weird. Tony Rios. More magazines. Really, really bad press pictures from back in the days. Like really bad. I'm not going to show you those. Fine Audio Recordings, my label back in the days, with Monika again doing a mix compilation for my label. but not only Monica, there was a mixed compilation by Gail San. That must have been 98 maybe. Whoa! These are really rare, these things here. This is an old Omen flyer, again, Omen Frankfurt. In this month, for example, I was playing twice. March 7th with Good Groove, March 21st together with Frank Lorber, and maybe, who knows what year that was, maybe 96, maybe 97, one of those years. Actually in the Omen I was one of the very last people to leave the club. When the Omen closed down, we have that party footage somewhere. I actually looked at that a couple of days ago. Where Sven is dancing outside, where the street was filled with people. And I remember I did not want to leave the club, and it was probably Monday morning or something like this, and I was one of the very last people to just walk out of this place. Like literally behind me, someone from the city just closed down closed the door. Shall we open another box? There's more boxes somewhere. By the way, if I haven't mentioned that yet, a new album is going to come out, or is coming out, on Mute Records in 2021, which I just finalized together with my lovely partner Ralf Hildenbeutel. And this time actually Daniel Miller also co-produced the album. So, Audio, my old label, Fine Audio Recordings. Is this already 20 years ago? This is insane. I do have some more boxes upstairs. Let's have a look. Ah. But it's cold and dusty in down here. Follow me. All right. Yeah, I got loads more boxes here. Those old laptops. An Apple G4, and this thing, like that is actually a laptop, which is like 2 kilos or something. Probably still functioning in some sort of sense. We used this for collabs live acts, like Jochen Papst, BDJ and myself, each one had one of those big things. This was hand luggage back in the days. Ah! I think I found a box with some of my old machines that I've been using on tour. And here, these beautiful boxes used to be I think my first record cases that I was traveling with from my very first label, Audio. So let's have a look inside. It's so cool to see. It's a great thing about record boxes, even if they were in the basement, they keep the stuff fresh and clean. Audio, brand new shirt. This is from 1997. That is so cool. Oh, some CDs. My first compilation, the Audio compilation. Still pretty happy with the font and with actually the artwork of it, because it's so timeless and so regular, so normal, so cool. In this box, which still has a luggage tag from Lufthansa on there, June 14th, 1998. Obviously that was the last time I used this box. But inside is my back catalog. Let me see what's here. Audio 10. Huh, Audio 10. I don't even remember Audio 10 is also by me. Let's have a quick listen to Audio 10. I really want to know what's on there. Well, interesting, but what I wanted to show you was Audio 7. Well, Audio 7, the 7th release on my label, was kind of the release, Dando Groove it was called, which kind of broke my career internationally, because the record became quite famous. Audio 7R. I remember this. It was a remix by James Ruskin, a remix by Oliver Ho, a remix by Andrew Ridgeley, and a remix by Thomas Crome. And the original. Let's listen to the original. This is produced in 1996, 1997. Nice heavy vinyl, cut at the Exchange in London by Niels. But back in the day, cutting the records was quite an art form, and Niels was the master in cutting the right techno sound, especially when it came to kick drums. And everybody wanted to have that sound. Everybody wanted to have these big kicks. So let's play you a little bit of Audio 7, the record that was so big back in the days. Maybe some of you remember that. I think could be released again today. So that was those times in the late 90s, and as you can see, I have these Omen stickers on there. And 2 weeks ago, I actually, while researching and looking through all stuff, I actually came across this closing, like the closing weekend of the Omen. Was the whole street was closed in front of the Omen. It was the last night of the Omen. Sven was playing, and I remember that Sven was playing like an insanely long set, but I was always kind of in the DJ booth in and out, and I also had my records there because I was playing here and there too. And I remember that Sven at some point, like multiple times around during that Sunday, he was taking a break, and sometimes he was just telling me like, "Chris, I need a break. Here it is." And I found this video, and I actually found the video in the part where Sven is dancing outside. So obviously I felt like I must be playing inside at the same time. It's all on YouTube. You can find it there. I think it's 10 Years Omen, Frankfurt, 1998. Here we go. That's legendary Sven dancing outside. And obviously I realized when I looked at the video, I was playing inside. 22 years ago. Yeah, that's out in the street, people dancing. Wait a minute. That is my record. So I'm definitely playing. That is my record. This is all. What? Hold on. This is so funny because this is this record. Where is it? Where do I have it? Audio 11. How sweet is this? So let's have a listen. I do think this is the same record. Hold on. Sounds pretty similar. Video. Vinyl. That's crazy. So the crazy thing about this is it's the first time I actually realize or I see the reaction of the people while I was playing this record 22 fucking years later. Record and original video. So let me show you some of the history of Frankfurt's music. Quite a landmark here. not only for Frankfurt music sound, but also for music history of Germany. Since this was the building where a lot of famous labels had their offices. One of the most famous and most commercially successful one was Logic Records, which is great because they still have the sign here. Also up on the third floor was basically the office space for IQ Harthaus, Sven Feth's label, where I started working in '95 and took care of pressing records and distributing records all over the world for actually what was called the Sound of Frankfurt. This was the office where I was sitting in when DJ Goodgroove came in and asked me if I had time tonight to play at the Omen. That was right up there. Obviously this is a new building, but this here used to be the place where the famous Omen Club was. The entrance was right here. It's nice that they kept the tree, obviously. And when we look at the old footage of when the Omen Club was closing in October 1998, we had a really big party here on this street, and you can see this house still exists, and basically this part still exists. And that was the center of Frankfurt's techno nightlife in the late 90s, mid to the late 90s, actually the whole of the 90s. Pretty special place here. Ooms, ooms, ooms. And when the Omen Club was closing down in October '98, a new club opened up, not too far away from the Omen, was called U6311, and we're actually standing right on top of the club, since the U6311 was an underground tube station. This was the main entrance to the U6311, and when you look over there, there's another entrance. That was the second room of the club, which we called U-Bar. It was a smaller room, it was kind of like more of an after-hour place as well. And as you can see, it wasn't too far away from the old Omen, but also the U6311 had to close down at some point. But it was a really good time. Well, this was really fun to go back in time and take this journey into the past and look at all these places where the clubs were, and yeah, looking at your own life. And I think it's really, really important sometimes to look back at where you're coming from and also the history of music, to know more about this and to know more about everything. But at the same time, this was the past, and I'm quite happy where I am right now. And I don't really miss these old times because we're here to create new memories every day.
Okay, guys, hope you really enjoy the documentary. To me, it happened really fast. It's 20 minutes, but it feels like, I don't know, like 2 minutes, really. So much emotions. Even if I'm not from Frankfurt, I felt so emotional. How does it feel, Chris, to watch it again?
You did such a fantastic job on this. It's incredible to see that. It's just this, not because of me, but because to relive this history a little bit. It's just incredible. I just want to make one thing I have to set straight a little bit. I said this was the morning when I walked out of Tresor where I fully understand techno. I have to correct myself a little bit on that. I think you never fully understand techno. Maybe sometimes you think, but then something new happens. And this is what makes it so interesting. I think this is why techno is so interesting, because if we look at it, we're now in 2021. 2020 is 20 years ago. So a 20-year time gap is, if you look at it, it's the same gap as between the early 70s till the early 90s. Look what musically happened between the early 70s and the early 90s. You know, there was the incredible 80s in the middle, which formed my musical taste. So a time span of 20 years is pretty incredible. And that's the amazing thing with techno music. It just constantly, you think you understand it, but it constantly evolves in a weird way. And you're continuously doing it and consuming it in a way, or even doing it, creating it. And you always find new ways to perform it, to produce it, and to experience it. Let's put it this way, as well on the dance floor. And I think this is why it's so long lasting so far. This is why we've been doing this for over 30 years, basically, with this kind of music. And there's so much still to discover. So you don't take my word that I ever understood techno.
That really
Who
makes
am I?
a lot of sense. But even that moment for me was, I don't know, when you explained that, it's like, wow. And it was really special. It was really special. 1 second, let me take out this. People, please, I would love if you share the feelings that you have with the documentary. Please share it in the chat. And if you have questions, we can, fortunately, we have more time, Chris with us, and we have 15 minutes more, 20 minutes more, depend on how many questions you have, guys. But please, if you have questions about related with the documentary or about his upcoming album or his masterclass, please share it in the chat, and the team is gonna be sending me the questions, and I'm gonna be like straight on with Chris asking questions. And we have already, Chris, some questions.
Sure.
Thomas Guzowski is asking that you mentioned in very old interviews, I don't know if you remember or not, like why techno influences us so well is because this has a lot of primary sounds from thousands of years of drums, you know. Do you still think this? Do you still think this in this way?
Hey, Thomas. Yeah, I do, because it's a very basic. It's in a way basic patterns that I think we're wired to enjoy. You know, I think our ancestors were just having sticks and wood to drum on, and were dancing to it, like you still see in some certain tribes and in certain areas of the world that dance to just basically drums and rhythms. So this is still, I think we're wired like this. It puts us in a certain state, maybe a trance-like state, a state that we feel very present with. It's very meditative in a way. And I think everybody who's been on a dance floor for a longer period of time dancing to a techno set has experienced that. And that's kind of what we're longing for, naturally, to be in that present state that this music puts you in. But then you get sometimes thrown out by some sounds that are coming in, and it's always kind of evolving. I think that plays a huge part of it. And another thing is that it's very global. Techno and electronic music in that sense is a very global phenomenon. You know, there is no regional restrictions in terms of language, in terms of vocals or anything like this. I think it's the first global music that we have on our planet.
That makes a lot of sense. Actually, Thomas is mentioning like these words have been following him for many years, maybe 10 years or even more. So even if he read it a long time, like obviously, and to me, actually, it has a lot of sense. It's primary sounds, kind of a tribal rhythm composition. Yeah.
Yes.
DMDKT 1985 is asking, it's been a few years since he went to a gig in Bremen. with very few people, and he said it was incredible, awesome. So his question is like, will something like this happen again? Can you do an internship? Can you do an internship with you? He wants to do an internship with you.
An internship. That's of course, parties like that happen. Sometimes you end up playing spontaneously at a party where there's a very intimate crowd. But internship is a bit difficult to realize, I think, these days. But thanks for coming out to Bremen.
Someone that I think you know, Dean Mushim,
Hey,
is
Dean.
asking. Yeah, Dean helped us, so thank you, Dean, for your cooperation on this. He's asking actually, if you had the chance to return either to play or to just dance at one of those clubs you mentioned in the documentary, which one would you choose? That's a difficult question, I think.
Oh, it's in a way, it's a difficult question because there's so many places I wish I could re-experience, especially in order to compare. That's a nerdy kind of thing. It compared on a sound quality level of where we are today and where we were like 20 years ago, because it's really hard to compare because you're not back there. But from an emotional and point of view, I would rank it like, first of all, I would love to play another gig in the Omen exactly like back in 97, 96, because I feel the Omen was my DJ school. It was what you can learn today with master classes here with Aulart, that wasn't available back in those days. So you basically were learning while you were performing, while you were DJing. And what I learned in the Omen by playing extended warm-up sets for guest DJs that would come play 2 hours and then play extended like early morning sets, because we never had closing times in Frankfurt, so clubs would just stay open as long as there's people. And playing over such extended periods of time not only gave you a lot of experience when it comes to your own music library to play what, when, at what time, but also like building up a night, building it up nicely for the main act to go on, not to exhaust the people too early, not to demand too much of the people in a too early stage, and not giving them too much already at an early stage as well. It's like a big party at 11 o'clock already happening. No, you were there to basically build a perfect, more or less perfect night for everybody who came into this place to experience the best possible journey. And that was an awesome DJ school, and the vibe was just so incredibly special because you still felt techno was not a global phenomenon as it is now. So you were still with a certain amount of people that, like this circle of people who knew, And interesting enough, in the middle of Frankfurt, they provided these spaces in Frankfurt for those people.
Well, I remember Omen, even for me, like I was born here in Barcelona, and even Omen was like kind of like a really reference club around Europe, I guess, across the world.
Oh yeah, very much.
And I know what you mean. Yeah, definitely, I know what you mean. So, sorry, Osti3s. I don't know if it's the nicknames. Sometimes are so complicated, but I think it's Osti3s is asking question. You kind of almost said in the commentary, but he's asking Chris. That time it was awesome. Do you want to return to that time? Would you return to that time?
I love the times that we're in right now musically, and if I had the chance, I just kind of answered it. I would return it for that night, just for fun, to be there. But I'm also a strong believer that that the most important moment is right now, and that we should experience and enjoy that moment to a full extent. And it was great back then, but I do believe the knowledge and experience that I managed to build up over the past 20, 25 years gives me personally, I'm not sure if anybody on the dance floor is noticing that, but it gives me personally like so much more fun and enjoyment playing, because I still learn something on every DJ gig, and I still try to do something new in every DJ gig. And it's been a lot of DJ gigs, and that's why I truly believe that as a DJ you can basically go get better and better until you're 100 years old, because the knowledge, the experience, the routine is building up. And if you use it wisely in the right way, it maybe gives the people on the dance floor even a better experience. I wish I sometimes could go back to those times with the knowledge that I have now and play an Omen set now with the knowledge that I have back in those days, and see what the reaction would have been. But you know, everything goes nicely together, and as we said before, organic things are happening for a reason. And you know, maybe we were playing back in those days. The reason why I'm saying this is I was listening to a recent recording that I found from 1995 out of the Omen. I have a recording. We were having a tape deck there, so there's lots of tapes that I still have of those recordings. And I was listening back to this set that I played, and it's literally like, obviously you were playing with vinyl, and it was literally like, oh yeah, this track is running, this track is running, this track is running, and now this track is running, this track is running. It was a completely different way of playing, of performing, but it was probably the right way to perform in that time, because that was exactly how the music was produced. That was exactly what gave the people the best possible experience on dance floor. So maybe the way you play today wouldn't even fit in those old environments. There's a lot of what might be, but I'm just, ultimately I can say I'm just very happy to have been able to experience those places and those times there.
And I'm happy you shared this moment with us, really. I really appreciate it. Techno Experience is asking, and that's something I realized when we were shooting the masterclass with you. I didn't know. Hi Chris, when was Ranch was made, and why do you don't play it anymore?
Schranz. It's called Schranz. Okay. I spoke about this quite a few times over the past 20 years. Actually, it was never intended to be anything. Right, and it is not a musical direction in a way. Let me quickly explain it to you. So we had amazing record stores in Frankfurt, and there was Delirium Records, Boy Records, and wherever you went, you just like you knew the people after a while, obviously. And Toe was a good friend of mine who worked in one of those record stores, and I was always drawn to some of the more industrial sounding, more distorted records coming out of England, especially by guys like Regis, Female, James Ruskin, you know, this kind of techno that was Surgeon. There was kind of like dirty, it wasn't sounding so clean, it was sounding a little bit more distorted. Sometimes it was faster, you know, and I was always looking for this. And when we discussed this kind of music, you know, we kind of started to mention, yeah, it sounds like shredding, you know, it shreds. It's like, that's kind of what I'm looking for. And then Toe, I remember he was saying like, it's schranzig. And I'm like, yeah, it's schranz. That's what it sounds like. That there's no meaning to this word. It's just basically, there's no translation out of German for this word. So it's just schranz. And a week later, I go into the record store, and he made a compartment with this kind of records, and he put Schranz on there. And I was like, what? Yeah, so you find those records quicker. These are the distorted records from England. And that's how it starts. So we made fun of it. In the beginning, we literally made fun of it. And I remember I made a birthday party in the Omen Club in 1997 in December. And I invited, I think, Monica Cruz, Gail Sen to play with me, and I called it the Schranz birthday or something. And suddenly people started to pick up on that. Oh, we want to listen to Schranz. And that's how it kind of developed. And I was like, oh, well, that's not really a music direction. It's just some sort of like certain sound. And keeps going over the years. And then young artists pick this up, and they say like, oh, I'm listening to Schranz. And then suddenly people starting to make up definitions for Schranz. And I'm just like, well, that's never what I said, you know, what do you mean? But ultimately, I think people's understanding of Schranz now these days and back in those days when it became weirdly enough more popular, was that it's kind of a fast techno music, you know, a little bit more distorted, fast techno music. And I do still believe I still play that stuff. That's just not what people think that it might be. So yeah, so I hope I was able to clear that up a little bit. And you know, it's funny because these days when I hear some other DJs play, and there's a lot of DJs starting to play like 144, 145 BPM again, it very much sounds like 20 some years ago. It's like, oh, that's like 25 years ago. That's what it sounded like. Yeah. So you could say that again now.
Okay, thanks for actually it's something I discovered when I was shooting with you, so I didn't know like you actually create the word as rant, and it was funny. I have a lot of questions, Chris, so
we should
can stay here for hours, but I have a lot, so many people, so I'm gonna try to
I'll try to be briefly now.
Exactly, and because I want everyone to be involved in this, so
right.
Okay, so Amir Ha is asking a really interesting question. Is saying DJing is extremely exciting, but at the end is also a job. How do you motivate yourself to always be in a good mood and be able to give 110%?
Okay, first of all, I don't see DJing as the job. I see the traveling. This is the job. The traveling is the job that I basically, a DJ gets paid for. The actual DJing is like, hey, I get to go to a club and play music. This is awesome. Always keeping this in mind, that this is a privilege that I can stand there and make that music. Never lets me kind of lose ground, you know, never lets me sit there like, oh, I'm so tired tonight. No, I actually get to do this. And obviously you live and learn, and you live while you travel so much to be in a mental and physical state, to be as fit as possible for your gig. You know, you kind of like learn to take maybe a later or earlier flight in order to sleep a little bit before the gig, after the gig, and stuff like this. And the better you do this, the less issues you have to actually be motivated to play a gig. And if I'm even down and I don't really feel it, I mean, I'm human as well. It usually works that I stand in the club for like half an hour and listen to it, and then I start playing, and then I'm like, yeah, it's great. You know, it's kind of like it's yeah, you're back.
Well, actually, I think not only traveling, actually, to stay. I think for my side, no, I mean, after I didn't tour as you, but I was touring for a lot of years. But it's not only traveling; it's for losing so many moments with family, with friends, because people don't realize that sometimes it's a lonely job. You know, in Christmas you're alone in a hotel room, and all of these moments, and this is actually, besides along travel, it's hard, it's tough sometimes. You know, I spend Christmas 25 December alone at the room, and
yeah, that's just like stuff that you have to be willing to sacrifice quite a bit out of your private life. Yeah,
but the goal is always to play there and say, hey, you know, I got paid for that, to be alone in a room for Christmas. But then the goal is like, okay, yeah, I can play the music I like. Ezequiel Martinez is asking, Chris, what was the most complicated place? The one you wanted to leave, the one you could never go through the same situation again, and what happened there?
Oh yeah, that must have been 2003, 4, 5, somewhere around this. I was booked for Sensation Black in Amsterdam, and some people might remember this party. I think that still exists. Sensation White. It was a big party by ID&T. It was the biggest indoor events back in the day, like ever, for electronic music. So they did Sensation White, which was more trance, and Sensation Black, which was more techno. And I was booked for Sensation Black, and the first time I would be playing indoors in front of, like, I think 40,000 people, some weird number of people in this big stadium. I think it was the Raya Arena in Amsterdam. Don't pin me down on that one. It was the early days of Final Scratch. So I had my computer, and you had the time-coded vinyl where you were playing, and the DJ booth was in the middle of the whole venue, so you were like turning all the time. You were like in the DJ booth were turning in the very middle, and you had all these, like, I think 40 or 25,000, I don't know, an insane amount of people around you, and it was like, oh, okay. So when I got on, I remember there was only like one person allowed in the DJ booth, and I got on, and I set up my stuff, and I put on like an intro for the first record, and they told me, it's like, oh, by the way, there is going to be a little fireworks going on before you play. I'm like, oh, okay. And so like the last, this DJ stops, leaves, then it's like an intro, and suddenly in front of me, this fireworks starting, which is located right in front of the DJ booth, and there's like rockets going off, and I'm standing there like, oh my God, what's going on? It was insane. And once the fireworks were done, I looked at my setup, and it was covered in ashes. So the computer was covered in ashes. My time-coded vinyl were covered in ashes, and it was just like, I tried to play the first record, and obviously, like, it just skipped and skipped and skipped. And then because the computer was covered in ashes, the computer just stopped working as well. And it was literally within the first 5 minutes of my set in front of the largest ever crowd that I got to play to indoors, you know. Let's not account outdoors where there's Love Parade. There's like some 100,000s of people listening. But that was like, oh, it's such an important gig for me in Netherlands, you know, young, still in an early career age, and you want to really make an impression. And then your whole setup is covered in ashes. It's just like, I can't play. Luckily, I had a bag of records with me, which I always had, but just one small bag of records. And I needed to play the set with this one small bag of records then, which I've used basically every B side and A side and whatever was on there. So the set itself didn't really go off, didn't make much sense, because I was just like, whatever, okay, I'll play this track, I'll play this track. And I kept turning on the stage, and people were just standing in front of me, like, not having it. Like, where's the big records? What's going on here? Like, what's going on? And you were just going in circles, and you would be seeing the same people, like every 2 minutes, you would be seeing people again, like looking at you like, no, we're not having it. Like, we're falling asleep. What are you doing there? And I had to do this for, I think, 90 minutes was the set. And that was the moment where I was just like, I wanted to disappear. I wanted to not be there anymore. Yeah, that was definitely the worst.
That's a crazy story. Wow. Okay, ADK is actually, I love techno, but sometimes I wonder if techno is still an innovative genre. And what do you think, Chris, about this?
Say that again. Is it what?
Innovative genre. Is it innovative? Is it keep innovating?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I cannot speak for everyone else. I can only speak for myself. And I can only do things when I'm excited about them. And I can only excite others when I'm excited about that. So I could never pretend I'm excited about some music and then DJ and hope to excite people on the dance floor. And I can only be excited about something if it constantly evolves. There's constantly something new going on, constantly some evolution going on. And that's the interesting thing with techno. It's like, even if I've mentioned it in the documentary, you listen to this record and I'm saying like, this could be released today. It could be released today, but in a modern sound environment, because sound-wise, we have gone like loads of levels up, which again gives the whole experience. I mean, sound is a big part of techno music. You have to feel the music in the club as well. And while you're listening to records released 20, 25 years ago, you rarely find records that would hold up to the sound standards we're having today. So that's something. And if you improve the sound standards, you start to listen to more and more details in the music. So working on these details, you might, from a superficial point of view, think like, oh, this record from 1997 and this record from 2021 sound kind of the same. You know, if you really dive into it, it gives you a whole different experience again. And I think this is just what keeps me excited, and just putting these tracks together always in a new way, always in a different idea. I'm amazed myself that I think the techno scene is bigger than it has ever been. Sometimes I'm sitting in an airplane, just like when I came over to LA, and there's a person sitting next to me who's like, what do you do? I'm a DJ. Oh, techno? Do people still listen to this? You know, it's like an older guy. I was like in the 90s, I once listened to a little bit of techno. Is this still a thing? And I'm like, it's more people than ever before that listen to this. Like I'm more on tour than I've ever been before in my life. So there's got to be something about this music that keeps ever evolving and keeps things interesting.
It was Eminem sitting next to you.
No. Nobody's listening to techno. Let's go. I actually sampled that and made a record out of it.
Oh, that's funny. Sin Hudson is asking, Chris, have you thought about bringing back the audio label?
Oh yeah, of course, but it's sadly the rights are in some other people's hands. You know, my friend Dean Musson, who's watching right now as well, he's an awesome manager and an awesome person overall. And he said something that I wish, he was on our DJs and Beer show quite a few times. And he said something that I wish somebody would have told me 25 years ago. It's like, you don't need a manager in the beginning, you need an accountant. You need somebody who looks after your money and your rights. And then you maybe at some point need a manager because, you know, great with your managers, like get your legal stuff and get your finances first in order. And when I started my audio label, I signed contracts that I had no idea about. And I was just like, yeah, let's do label. And I did this with this company. And when I left the company, they were like, you can leave, but your label stays with us. I'm like, what? Why? This is my label. And they're like, no, you see, you signed this. You gave us the rights to keep your label. So I did a lot of stupid mistakes as a young artist. I did a lot of stupid mistakes as an older artist as well, but I'm still learning. And so I don't have the rights on that name actually. And I don't even have the rights to my own tracks. This is like, be careful. Music industry sometimes is...
That's actually good advice. Okay, we have tons of questions. I don't know, Chris, if we want to... Okay. I want to try to, but there is a lot of questions. Roberto Bro is asking, that's an interesting question. How many years do you need on average nowadays in order to become a respect techno DJ? He said, I listened to long time to my parents and I have postponed my passion for many years. Still regrets till this day.
Okay, that's a loaded question because it really depends on a lot of factors. One thing I can tell you is I think it depends on a very personal experience. There's might be some DJs who learn it like last year and they already have such a talent that they can go out there and have such a musical feel that it works. But one thing is for certain, it's never too late. It's like never ever too late to start DJing. It's never too late to follow your passion, because as I said earlier, it's different than being in a rock band. It's a bit different than being let's say a classical musician in a way. You play guitar in a rock band or something. Obviously, you do get better at your craft. You get better at your drums, and everything. But you know, in the rock world, they say if you didn't make it when you're 25, stop trying. You know. But as a DJ, I really, really believe that you get better over the years and you could just gain knowledge and there's just like no end to it. So even if you're 50, start DJing. Why not? You know, you still have another 20, 30 years to develop. And if you make people happy on the dance floor, there's a way to go for you.
Good. Next question. Viveloth, Chris, what made you change your sound, tune, and include more deep lyric to your music?
Also a good question, because I never really consciously changed my sound. It's not like that I sit down. I don't know how others do it. It's not like never that I sat down and had an intervention with myself, like I need to change something about my sound. I've went through stages where I'm looking back now and I feel a little embarrassed of what stuff that I played in the past, but you know, that just came. It's just like you are a product of your environment, if you want it or not. And if when the minimal movement came up, let's say in the middle of 2000s, and listen to me, the minimal movement will come up again now, sooner or later. You know, it obviously influenced my own style as well, even though I didn't ended up playing minimal, but I kind of like, you get some sort of like, oh, that actually sounds interesting. Maybe we should leave a little bit more space between the kick drums, make the tracks a little slower and have a bit more soul in it. You know, it just happens. It's just not a decision that you're making really. And when you talk about like vocals coming in now as well, especially with my new album, there's even people singing on this album. Yay. And it's not that I'm changing this. I'm a kid of the 80s. I grew up with all these 80s bands. I grew up with all that. And that's always been in me, and it just wants to get out at some point. And so at some point in your life, I think in my case, I feel the confidence to let it out. And I don't think that the one thing excludes the other. It's inclusive. You know, you can play a techno set with maybe a little bit of vocals in there. I know there are purists out there who say like techno has no vocals. I'm not one of them.
Okay. Sorry. Carlo Jasikovic, what's your favorite record you have produced?
Oh, it's really sort of impossible to answer. It's like it's not about, you know, that's the great thing about, again, in electronic music and techno, it's not always about like this was my favorite, this was the one that I'm relying on always. You just, it's not about having a favorite record, it's always about a record that you, or the music that you want to, that you feel like you want to have people to listen to. And if it comes to an album, then I would almost say my most recent album, or my most recent record, is always the most favorite of mine, because that's where I put all the experiences of the last ones in. And there have been most favorite, dating back 20 years.
That makes sense. Dirk Herman, hi Chris, what is your secret after such a long time on stage to keep your ears healthy?
Oh, I have no idea. My ears are not healthy. I tell you, I sit at dinner tables and I am sometimes like, what? It's you know, but I think, you know, you have to have sacrifices in your life in a way. And the hearing is some of them. I mean, talk to a lot of musicians out there that have been in rock bands or whatever. The hearing, you can try and do the best for your hearing. I have obviously earplugs that I put in when I'm at big festivals, like reduce the amount of unnecessary noise that you're exposed to. But when I'm DJing, I've really tried to work with earplugs while DJing, but for some people it might work. For me, it never really worked. So I'm trying to be gentle with my monitoring volume. So it's not as bad as you think. But one day, I think in 10, 20 years, I am hoping for science and technology to just develop certain sort of hearing aids that are implanted in your ear, and everything is back to normal. So just be careful as good as possible. If you are a club goer, festival goer, just bring earplugs. Do it. Do yourself a favor, because it's usually loud out there. You know, it's usually actually louder for the audience than it is for the DJ.
Actually, it's a good advice. I've been wearing that for the past 20 years. So, guys, listen to Chris. It's a good advice.
Yeah.
Jorge Luis Garcia Perez is asking, some comment on how was producing music back on the 90s versus now? A good question.
A very good question. Back in the 90s, the beautiful thing back in the 90s, you were limited. And as I learned from my mentor and godfather of music, Mr. Daniel Miller, his saying is always like, limitation is the key. Like, if you limit yourself to certain things, your creativity needs to go through and do something. In today's world, producing music means you have only a laptop, and you can have any tools available to you in the whole world. So your possibilities are endless, which is not sometimes a good thing. Back in the early 90s, you had a drum machine, you had a synthesizer, and a sampler that could sample maybe like 3 seconds or 4 seconds or something. And you didn't have a recall button. You couldn't save a project. You could save the MIDI projects on an Atari ST, but you maybe had synthesizers where you could save a patch, and then maybe next day it would almost sound the same, but not really. So you had to be in the moment. You had to record something in that moment, which was beautiful in itself because it was a forced limitation on you. Today, you have no limitations. So my advice is, if you're feeling not inspired to make music, limit yourself. Limit yourself to a drum machine, one synth, one something else, some effects, and then work with this. And just don't go outside of this. Yeah, that's the biggest difference.
That's a top advice. Really, super, super good advice. I would love to pin that advice right now. Alexandra is asking, what do you think, Chris, about mixing between commercial sounds with techno beats? She says like, this is so sad, on my opinion.
Oh, in my opinion, it's not my thing. It's like, first of all, we have to define commercial. I think commercial music is music that was produced with the intention to make the most amount of money or to reach the most amount of people, which is kind of the same thing. So in reverse, that means that there's sometimes music out there which is commercially extremely successful, but it's really good because it was never intended to be successful. It just came out of the moment the producer just produced it because he wanted to produce it. I think that's the difference between, for me at least, the difference between like underground, overground, or whatever you want to call it, or commercial music and non-commercial music. But if there's a techno track which has this cheesy line suddenly coming in, which is purely the idea to grab the attention of as many people as possible, yeah, then I find it sad as well.
Nanopax is asking, Chris, looking back at the history of techno in Frankfurt, what do you think of the state of the scene today? Currently today, what is
Frankfurt?
In Frankfurt, yeah. What's the most important thing that new generation should take from this era?
Well, Frankfurt has a very special history. Frankfurt has really amazing places still today where you can go out. It's Tanzhaus West. There's a small club called Faust. There's various events that happen in Frankfurt. There's a lot of young promoters doing a lot of great little parties. Yet it's more difficult these days in Frankfurt to do these things because in the 90s, Frankfurt was already a city driven by financial economy, banks. It's a bank city. But yet in the middle of the cities, clubs like U60 and Omen were still existing. I mean, we even had a club at the airport, which was called Dorian Gray, which was insane to think about it today, that you basically could walk out of your gate and get out, and it's sort of in the same building. It would be impossible to have this today. So it was amazing to experience that because it was so raw. It was such a pioneering moment in music history in Frankfurt back in those days. And I mean, Frankfurt was just a small part. If you look at Berlin after the fall of the Berlin Wall, where a lot of places in the East, just locations started to open up at the weirdest places, for example, Tresor, where there was no rules essentially. And it just like this whole culture could just develop without any boundaries really, which was beautiful. And it was the start of electronic music. So Frankfurt in that sense has become more and more expensive, though to run a club in the middle of the city has become extremely expensive. Wouldn't be economically possible today really to run it on a scale like the Omen Club or anything like this, unless there's somebody involved who has loads of money to throw around like Jeff Bezos or something, and he doesn't think about doing space stations. But that's the difference. But you can still find in Frankfurt amazing parties. You might have to go a little bit on the outskirts, or the places in Frankfurt like Faust are a little smaller. Yeah.
I actually want to mention something that happened. Past weekend I was in Dubai in the International Astronautical Congress, and I was with a guy, a friend of mine, that he actually flew in the second flight of Blue Origin. So he met Jeff Bezos, and actually he's a DJ. And it was the second officially flight from Blue Origin, and obviously we were mentioned that possibility. I'm not kidding. That's obviously and very soon we're gonna have like parties on the moon, like really soon. Soon, I mean 20 years, 20, 30 years.
You know, let's first worry about our planet here, I would say. Yeah. And if there's parties on the moon or in space stations, it's probably only for very rich people. So yeah. It's interesting. Well, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah, it's another topic. Michael Vavir is asking, Chris, is it possible to re-release old catalog audio and CLR records?
CLR is still, everything essentially is still available. And obviously, re-releasing stuff is always an option. And yes, I could speak to the current right holders of audio and see if there was an interest in re-releasing some of the old music, which is a good idea. It's I've been thinking about this as well. But you know what keeps me from doing this? Always doing new stuff. you know, because I find making new stuff also actually way more appealing than, you know, sometimes it's a good thing to get back to old stuff and to re-release something, because it's just like, it's still there and it still works and it's timeless somehow. But I also very much believe in putting energy to create new stuff.
That's something like I know what you mean. Like constantly like thinking about that re-release. No, it makes no sense. I have a lot of questions. Do you have 5 minutes more, Chris?
Sure, of course. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. This is extending, but okay. I'm gonna try to
no,
go.
We let's do another 15 minutes. We're good. Okay. We're good here.
Okay. It's all about techno music. Hey, Chris. When you look back on your career and the decisions you made, could you do everything the same way again, or there are things that you would do differently?
Yeah, I've mentioned that before. I probably would have done some business decisions differently, which were haunting me. Some of them still today, working together with managers who were not having your best interest at heart, working together with people where you just put your trust in and then you got disappointed. But that's just the decision that I made because I didn't have any other information at that point to make any other decision. So I'm fine with that. You know, I don't regret anything that I've been doing, because I couldn't have done it any different at the moment that I did it. But if I could go back, obviously I would listen to the advice of our friend Dean Mushin here, who said, like, get yourself some accountant who you can trust and then sort out the rest, and be safe with the legal things. Don't be like a young artist that goes out there and somebody from a record industry stands there with if you sign this, you're going to be a superstar. Oh yeah, let me sign it. And then you're just basically a slave to the music industry for the next 30 years. Luckily I've never made any of those wrong decisions, but there have been cases in the music world, obviously, of that happening. So yeah, that's basically.
Well, what you're doing right now is educating people. I mean, it's the purpose actually from Aulart, to educate people to don't do mistakes like some of us did in the past 15 or even like 20, 30 years ago.
Exactly.
Zedwerkerin, sorry for my pronunciation, but some nicknames are difficult to me. Question: do you remember the first track, set, or party ever that pulled you into the techno craze?
Yeah. I can recommend you guys to listen to my Spotify podcast series. I have a podcast series on Spotify, and actually I'm explaining some of the old records there, and you can listen to the records, and I'm talking about it. It's on Spotify, and there was this one moment which I remember. It must have been 91, and I was in a small club in Heidel. No, not. Where was it? In Karlsruhe. Karlsruhe is like a city about 1.5 hours south of Frankfurt. And I remember I was there with my older sister, who had a boyfriend at that time there. And we went to this club, and it was kind of playing commercial, normal music. I was already a DJ back then. So I was just like always interested in what DJs are playing in other places. And then suddenly JD Plastic Dreams comes on. And if you guys don't know JD Plastic Dreams, just put it on Spotify. And I was standing there listening to this, and I was like, what is this? This is what I want to do. That's what, this is amazing. Like, this goes on like forever, and it just evolves, and it's just like, this is the music. That was a moment which I still very vividly remember, where I was like, I want to do this kind of music. I want to do this. JD Plastic Dreams. Check out my Spotify thing. I'll explain it there.
Magrat Nikinpana is asking, dear Chris, could you please tell us a little more about your masterclass?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, the masterclass was an awesome experience to do, especially with, I have to say, with professionals like this. This is like, you guys thought of everything. You had a great script, so we could think of everything. I'm explaining in that masterclass essentially how I approach DJing, how I approach selecting music, what my idea is. And I think we always need to stress that point. It's like, that's why there's lots of different masterclasses of different DJs, obviously, because none of it is the same. Nobody has really the same idea. I'm explaining my idea of how I want to create a night, how I think a journey of a longer set should be, what the idea of a shorter set should be. It's kind of what I'm thinking, what my inspirations has been, what my techniques have been to play up to this point. So I'm explaining everything up, even in detail, how I have mapped my controllers for Traktor. And but the thing that I want to add, even though I'm using a different mixer these days, the masterclass still applies in exactly the same way, because essentially, like, the tools you're using are interchangeable. It doesn't really matter if you're playing with a Model 1 mixer, with a Pioneer mixer, with an Allen Heath mixer. The idea behind this is always the same. And obviously, I'm playing with Traktor from Native Instruments, and have controllers, and I have the machiner. I'm explaining everything how I'm doing it in very, very much detail. And if you're using different software, or if you're using different drum machine or anything, it still applies to you, because it's still, you just have to kind of translate it into your own world, which you should anyways. You should not really listen to what I'm saying. It should be more or less giving you an inspiration of, maybe I could think about it this way, you know. I think, Mark, I think we can already mention that maybe that we're working on an addition to this.
No, actually, 7-inch asked, hey Chris, is there a planned update to the masterclass with actual hardware setup? Well,
yes, there is a plan that we are filming, let's say an update to this masterclass, where I can totally explain, because I'm using a different mixer at the moment, where I can totally explain like how this is working. And I thought after the masterclass, since we shot it and since it's out there, I thought of additional things to explain to you guys out there when it comes to making your playlists, sorting out music, how to basically understand and learn your music that you're playing. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to actually add this. So it's an ongoing process. The whole masterclass is not done yet. It's still, I think, if you bought it, you will get this extra then as well. You know, it's like there's, as I said, techno is always evolving, and so are we. And so we're going to add some stuff.
Yeah, and actually, we already add some Q&A questions with your students. So yeah.
Right, we did. Yeah.
I like. Ivan Radulovic is asking, what was the more energetic and more honest audience back in the 90s?
How good. Also, again, a good question. It's so hard to still compare this, you know, because we had some amazing clubs in Germany in the 90s, like Aufschwung Ost, Stammheim, obviously Distillery, which is still running, which you saw in the documentary, Tresor, Nachtwerk in Munich. It was just so raw and so energetic in these days, because it was so new again still to many people. And also in East Germany, we had just these places popping up after the fall of the Berlin Wall, which were people obviously after living in a dictatorship for so many years and then getting out of it and just discovering this electronic music was just an energy level that was unprecedented. But again, still today, I go to places. I remember like ADE. I played Audio Obscura, like the closing that 3 hours after Anna on that Saturday night. And I was just blown away by the energy of the people. I was just like, what is going on? They were on top of each other. Everybody was just going mental. And yeah, it's still, you know, it's hard to compare, but it's still happening today.
Okay, I'm gonna do 2 more questions.
Sure. And we can do 3 more.
Okay, 3 more if you like 3 more.
Yeah.
Adamski official. Chris, did you planning any time to release the remix of Pachanga Boys played on Sonus and Tomorrowland 2015?
Pachanga Boys legs, that is. Funny, I saw Alex Schaufler, who is super pitcher, who made this, who's one part of the Pachanga Boys. I saw him 1.5 months ago, and we actually talked about this. And no, there's no plans to release this. It was just a fun edit that I did.
Okay, now I'm curious to listen to the okay, ADK is asking, if you have to explain to an alien what techno is by letting him hear only one track, which track could be? That's a really funny question. I love it. One track if an alien comes to the planet Earth.
What track would I play to him?
I love the question, actually.
It depends on how I want to explain it to him. I would probably play to him Sacred Circles by Lazenby, because it has kind of all the elements in there. It's a very old record.
I don't know.
It's a very old record, and it has a trance element. You don't know it?
No.
Sacred Circles by Lazenby, Lazonby, I believe, and Sacred Circles. If you check out my Spotify podcasts, it's on there, because I play quite a lot of classics in there. And that track basically has parts where you have like the drumming going on, so the alien would understand what it's about, the energy, and then you have the emotional parts in there and the spheric things in there. So I think I would choose that one.
Roberto, bro, how much more competitive is the DJ business right now in comparison with your younger days? How competitive is it nowadays?
Wow, I want to say it's not competitive at all, because you do your thing and there's no competition going on, but that's obviously a dream world. There's competition going on. There's always been competition going on, and that's what it's also a good thing, because you can either go the way and be like, oh, we need to compete, or you go like, oh, I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to do it, what comes out of me, in order to always evolve and get better, and then I don't care about any competition. So there's always been loads of competitions going on. There's always been fights going on. What's your playtime? What's your place on the lineup? What's your place on the poster? How big is your name? But I think most artists that I know leave that up to their managers. They fight with each other. Obviously, there's egos involved. Everybody has one, and so the competition has been a little bit bigger now because of social media as well. So there's like you compare yourself with what others are doing way more than you did in the early days, where you could only just check the record. I was like, oh, this record, what he's done, like what am I doing? Now you just open your phone and you compare, oh, he's in this place and then this place. So my recommendation, do not compare yourself to others. Just stay out of it, like completely stay out of it. Just follow what you're doing. And if you listen to others, or if you check out others, then use it as a source of inspiration for you.
Okay, two more questions.
Not as a source of bitterness that why he's there and not me. Yeah, sure, go.
Okay, Vivelot is asking, what inspired you to this last project that is so unique? I mean, he means the album. Because it's so unique.
This one.
Yeah. It's so
unique. It is unique. I mean, I started to make techno because I didn't know how to play any instruments, and I still don't know up to date. I never learned an instrument. So I think I grew up, I'm not coming out of a musical family somehow, but I think I always wanted to make music. And when I started first listening to music, I always wanted to make it. But I never really had the ability to make it. But when techno came up, I certainly had the ability to make it, because it was kind of like a punk movement in electronic, with punk, you just like, if you knew how to play the guitar or not, you're just like going and playing it, which was awesome. Which put a lot of music into creating music. And it was the same thing with electronic music. You had some machines, a drum machine, you were just playing around with it, and suddenly you had some sort of like groove going on. Wow, I can do this without having ever learned an instrument. That's great. So it was always kind of in me to create this kind of music that I also grew up with, but also influenced by the music that I'm making with techno. And just to quickly give you a roundup for this, Ralf Hildenbeutel, who's my co-producer on this album, and also on the last Burn Slow album, is one of the legendary Frankfurt techno producers. He's been with IQ Records, which you saw in the documentary, from the very early 90s on, and he produced some of the biggest records on IQ and some on Hard House. He produced like the first 3 albums of Sven Feth, or 4 even. And he's an insanely amazing musician. and obviously producer. And when I had the idea back in 2015, I want to make some music, and I had at that point I already had a good friendship going with Mr. Daniel Miller, because of Nova Mute and all that stuff. I felt like, oh, maybe I want to create something besides the dance floor, but which maybe in a mix works on the dance floor. And so I asked Ralf, who's also still living in Frankfurt and also still producing music and mostly film scores. It's like, Ralf, would you help me making that kind of music? Because my abilities are limited to techno, let's put it that way. And if I want to work on more melodic stuff and more like singers and vocalists involved, I would feel better. I mean, I couldn't do it alone, to be just quite frankly honest, So Ralf would you want to make an album with me? And he was like, sure, let's sit down. And that's how we made the Burn Slow album. And luckily for me, Daniel Müller was so interested to release it on Mute Records, which was mind-blowing. It's still mind-blowing for me today, because Mute Records is a label that's been around for over 40 years and mostly influenced my musical taste. Ralf Hildenbeutel is a producer who influenced my techno, because his early releases drew me into techno as well. So I'm getting to produce an album with the person who basically made techno for me reachable in a way, like accessible. And I get to release it on the label that influenced my whole music taste for over the last 40 years, is still BAM. And so that's how the Burn Slow album came about. And then for this album now, which is called Another Day, we, I think, took it even a step further. And I was just more encouraged as well. Like, let's go deeper. Let's go really into like, let's into something that are, sometimes your creativity is limited by your fears. You're like, oh, I can't really do this. What do people think when I do this? And what do people think if I have somebody singing? And I still remember when we did Burn Slow album, it was like, let's just stick to spoken words, and not really singing. And I've lost those fears. I lost those limits. And this is what you can hear on that album. And lucky for me, I have this amazing producer, Ralf, on my side, who helped me create that vision. And not only him, actually having Daniel Miller himself being a producer of this album, let's say an executive producer of the album, giving us ideas and even coming with his modular setup to Frankfurt to basically add a certain edge to the album, which he felt was still a little bit missing. I've been learning so much in this process. It's just an awesome process. I've been blessed to be working with so many amazing, talented people on this. So I think that's quite a reason to be inspired to do this kind of music.
Thank you so much, Chris. I mean, there's much more questions, people asking about the masterclass, but you can check on aulart.com the masterclass details of your class. Sorry for the rest of the questions, but it was so long. But I want to mention some comment like Redneck Discotheque says that he can tell you, thank you for keeping in contact with all of the DJ and beers and sets during the lockdown. So I guess I'm speaking, or he's speaking in the voice of so many and thousands of people who are happily watching your DJs and beers and
well, thank you for the support and listening to DJs and beers and Alone Together session. So it goes both ways. And also I have this news for you that on December 2nd, so in about exactly 1 month, we're going to do a DJs and Beers reunion on a Thursday night. So tune in for that.
Wow, yeah. Wow, that sounds good. I want to mention thank you, Chris. It was incredible to do this short documentary. And I want to mention that it's going to be available since right now on the Aulart YouTube channel, obviously for free. And please share it with your friends across the world. We want to spread the word of Chris as much as possible. And it's going to be available again with multiple subtitles and French, Russian, Chinese, Spanish, and English captions. And I want to mention thank you for everyone to join us. Chris, thank you so much. It was an incredible experience, really. I think so many DJs and musicians who want to start on this business, or they want to take it seriously, or even only for fun. I mean, I think we're helping a lot of students and artists worldwide. So thank you so much for sharing all of
Well,
this.
it goes both ways again. It's like thank you for what all you do and the way you approach things in such a professional manner, and works so well. I'm so happy to be able to share this, and sharing this with your platform is just, I couldn't think of any other better platform. And for those guys listening out there, it's never too late. It's like, do not ever think, oh, I've missed the 90s. I've missed jumping on that train back in 2000, or I should have started 10 years ago. Don't ever think that way. It's always the best moment. It's like, what is the Chinese saying? The best moment to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best moment is now.
Okay. Remember, we have last minutes, guys. If you didn't subscribe to the giveaway, Chris Liebing is releasing the album 19th of November, another day, and we're giving 5 copies of that beautiful album. And please, if you still have a chance to win one of the copies, we're choosing tomorrow. Tomorrow we're gonna send the 5 winners, but you still have the possibility to subscribe and try to join this copy. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
And thanks
Thanks,
you for
guys,
all our team to helping us spread the word. See you soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.